Hey Vanessa, how you doing?
Hey, awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. You've recently just got back from a bit of an epic trip. How
Yeah,
was that?
I have. I'm very much still in recovery. My body doesn't really know what's happened to it. So I literally 2 nights ago got back from the Tunisia Desert Challenge, which is a grueling, brutal, horrific, and amazing all at the same time 8 day extreme rally raid in Tunisian desert. So it was very full on. I think some highlights are going to be surviving, being the only female to ever enter and the first female to finish. Helicopter rescue, campfire in the dunes to stay warm and not get eaten by the animals. It was wild.
Wow. And what was the helicopter rescue? What happened there?
So I basically had a bike breakdown at about 10:30 in the morning, which sounds really early, but at that point I've been racing for about 4.5 hours because it's and I was doing okay. Our water supply, food started to get low. The organisers had briefed other competitors that were in bigger trucks, buggies, and cars
Mhm.
to always give and carry spare water and food to give to motorcycles if they see them in the desert, because we are incredibly vulnerable. We can only carry so much. So I did have a good supply of water. I got given food. I probably had about 9 bottles, so 9 1.5 litre bottles across the 7 hours that I was stuck in the dunes. And
Wow.
I tried to make shade as soon as I could, but midday sun in the dunes, not even my motorbike could give me shade. So I was trying to stay hydrated. I was eating, I was making shade. I took all of my emergency electrolytes, all those kinds of things. But unfortunately, in 45 degrees heat, the body can only last so long. And it got to the point where it felt like I had a helmet on and someone had a stick and was like, bam, bam, bam. That was how much my blood, heart rate, pulse, system was trying to cope with the heat. I started to get really dizzy and disorientated. The wind had picked up as well, so it was really sandy, and I was in the sort
Oh
of
my
fetal
God.
position next to my bike. And our bikes vehicles are all fitted with safety systems so that the organizers know where you are. I knew they knew where I was. I knew that they knew that I was needing rescuing, and
Mhm.
I wasn't an emergency. I hadn't had a massive off. I wasn't broken. I wasn't bleeding. I was just sitting there getting really, really hot. Um, Unfortunately, someone actually died a couple of days before from the exact same
Oh,
thing,
really?
and they didn't hit emergency come and get me. And so I got to the point where I realized that I actually really wasn't okay, and I was only going to continue to sort of get worse. And I found the strength to hit the emergency button. And when I say find the strength, first of all, I had to like clamber around the other side of my bike, which was quite hard by this point. I wasn't doing very well. But also the mental strength to be able to sit there in the desert when I've not had a crash and go, I'm an emergency. I need the
Yeah.
organisers to come and get me and put the helicopter up. And psychologically, that was actually a really hard thing to do. And the
And you
paramedics.
and you're on your own, right? So you kind of got to make the call
Oh,
yourself
yeah,
and
yeah, I was on my own. And yeah, the paramedics that obviously came out and got me, the helicopter appeared, and I was just like amazing. I could hear it while I was lying there. And I kind of rolled over and tried to sort of wave. Obviously, they could see me. They knew where I was. They could see my bike. So that they knew that I was there and they'd stop and save me. And then the helicopter flew away. And I was just like,
what?
I mean, a little part of me inside felt like it was like dying because maybe I'd moved too much. Maybe I shouldn't have waved and they saw me and were like, oh, she's fine. Look, she's moving. And yeah, so I went back into my fetal position. I had the worst panic attacks I've ever had. I do a lot of what I call mindfulness that helps me with the ongoing chronic pain I have following the accident, which we'll probably get into in a bit. And I'm
Yeah.
very used to trying to control my mental thoughts and my emotions and what's going on. And I was lying there and it didn't work because no matter what rationale I could put to my situation, I was not okay. I was stuck in the desert. My body was shutting down with the heat and I was totally alone in a sandstorm. And anyway, I just tried to calm myself. And what felt like 10 minutes later, I suddenly heard this voice and two hands on my back, and there was a paramedic actually saving me and getting me back to the bivouac, getting me on a drip, another drip, and getting me back to how I should be. But they definitely questioned why I didn't hit the emergency button sooner, because I was definitely an emergency. But it's a scary game out there in the desert.
Whoa. Is that kind of, you reckon that's one of the scariest moments you've been in?
Yeah, definitely. And when you think about it in the context of, someone else not being with us anymore from the very same situation where they didn't hit the emergency button, it's quite scary. It really is quite scary. And you think sometimes you feel alone sat in your house at home when, stuff's taking over in life and you're feeling a bit stressed. When you're in the middle of the desert on your own, you really are on your own.
Wow.
It's all part of the adventure, though. The crazy thing as well is that I've now got some form of post-traumatic stress disorder. I don't know. One day I didn't ride because the medical team were like, your body you need to hydrate. You can't go on the bike. Plus, my bike was still in the desert being recovered by the sweepers. And the next night, obviously I was having these nightmares, and I woke up in the middle of the night knowing that I was meant to be riding the following day. And I was just like, there's no way I can go back out into that desert on my own. I'm terrified. I don't think I will mentally cope being stuck in the desert again. And I'd had this awful dream. They were so real and vivid. And even the same medical team that saved me were like in my dream. And I woke up being like, that's it, I'm out. I'm done. There's no way I can keep going with this race. Eventually got myself back to sleep. Woke up in the morning and was like, where's my bike?
Oh, really?
Let's go.
Shake it off.
What? How the mind works, I have no idea. But I got back on my bike. I had gone to Tunisia. I'd signed up, and I knew it was going to be the hardest thing I'd ever done. And I was determined to keep going. So I kept going.
That's awesome. Nice. And I mean, like, going back before you got into bikes, what how did this all begin? Like that kind of, I guess, sort of wanting to do like adrenaline fueled things, or like was it sort of action sports? Was there a certain thing that kind of kicked it off when you were younger, do you think?
I grew up with a very active lifestyle. I've got a lot of gratitude to the sort of childhood my parents gave me. They'd always be, if I said I was bored, that was me having a lack of imagination to entertain myself. Go outside and find something to do. And it was a very outdoor active lifestyle. They put me into loads of different scenarios, from rock climbing to kayaking, boogie boarding, cycling, all kinds of different things. The biggest love we had growing up was with horses. So I was very lucky to be around those. And when you think about horse riding, I honestly think that the biggest purpose of a pony's, like the whole meaning of life, the reason why they're put on earth, is to put their riders on the ground. So like you're constantly falling off and you get back on. And I think that's obviously sort of helped me through life. When I then got to university, I realized that there was more sports and adrenaline and fun to be had. I started doing skydiving, wakeboarding, snowboarding, rock climbing, all these kinds of things, and sort of massively stepped up in the sort of adrenaline of the sports world that you can do. There's a lot of incredible activities out there.
Yeah.
Pre-accident, the big love of sort of sports that I had, and I very much have described myself as an adrenaline junkie. I lived for pushing myself physically and mentally in extreme sports. The endorphins, the adrenaline, you just feel really alive. And so kite surfing was my big sport back then. Okay. I would say I was a pretty good kite surfer. I was doing unhooked tricks, traveling. Most of our holidays, this was my other half, he's known as Rocky Monster online. He and I would do weekends kite surfing. So there was no wind. We'd be mountain biking or rock climbing or wakeboarding. We'd go on a lot of holidays, were kite surfing, snow kiting, snowboarding. Like a whole life revolved around these sports. I was pretty fit. I definitely, if I could go back in time, take quite a few moments to appreciate how amazing my body was back then, because it could do anything, and most importantly, my body didn't hurt. And unfortunately, now my body hurts. So yeah, I was very active.
And what happened then? I mean, like with the accident, like how yeah.
So yeah, it was a totally normal Tuesday. I had been in the office all day. I was actually heading to the wakeboarding lake to meet my husband and some friends for an evening. My husband and I sort of ran and operated the RAF wakeboarding club.
Okay.
I got on my bicycle because I wasn't an active motorcycle rider at the time, which a lot of people don't realize. Motorcycles have very much been something I've kind of discovered through my recovery. And I was cycling away. I got about a mile down the road from the office. Traffic lights turned green in front of me. Amazing. Pedaled on through. And then a car coming the other way decided not to stop at their red light. And they cut straight across in front of me, leaving me with nowhere to go. And like that, life as I knew it changed. And I went straight into the side of the car. Now, I was not a bleeding mess. I wasn't scraped up by paramedics or anything horrific like that. I went to hospital in an ambulance, and I was discharged later that night with bruising.
Wow.
Now,
that was it. That was all they kind of.
Yeah, bruising. Now, if we fast forward 8-year anniversary, but I've had 7 surgeries, including a reconstructed right shoulder and right hip. So when you think about bruising versus the actual implications of what happened, it kind of gives you an idea of the battle it's been trying to get myself back to, ultimately trying to get to a point where I'm pain-free. I've had to readjust my expectations somewhat. Pain-free isn't realistic for my home, for my body. And so instead get to a point where, you know what, I can still get up and get out there, managing the pain, the expectations of my body, but get out there and have a good time.
And so then, like, were you kind of, I mean, obviously you're then dealing with like the physical and the mental recovery process during those different surgeries. And like, when did you think, okay, like, you know, you're going to kind of, you're going to get on a motorbike, and like, where did that idea come from? Were you like thinking like, maybe like, I can't go like mountain biking straight away or wakeboarding, so like, let's try something else? And
it's the motorbike started as a very practical thing in life, I suppose. Okay. The best way I describe my recovery was start to do your rehab, you get fitter, you get stronger, you start to get a bit more able, and then you get to sort of the higher part of the roller coaster where maybe I can get on a motorbike, and then I'd realize there's complications. Like my pain just won't go. I'm 28 years old. I shouldn't be dependent on painkillers, all these kind of things. I'm 35 now, but obviously over the years. And so I'd end up going back to the medical teams, and sure enough, there'd be complications, things gone wrong, and I'd need more surgery, and I'd be back down the roller coaster. So it was at one of these points where I was a little bit more physically able, but not able to do my sports and not able to cycle to work and do my commute. And I was really struggling with traffic, fuel costs, parking, time in traffic, getting to work every day. And I came up with the idea that I should get a motorbike because I could skip the traffic, save money on fuel, don't worry about parking, and it'd be really, really fun. Now, we've talked a little bit about my physical recovery. Something I'm very open with is that despite 2 reconstructed body parts, the mental health recovery has been harder than the physical recovery. I was diagnosed with multiple mental health disorders, change disorder being one of those, and then fear of the road. I can't emphasize how difficult it was getting back out on the road and getting on a motorcycle, but there are, I guess, a few things that helped me make that happen, including a lot of determination to not let the lady that hit me take even more away from me.
Yeah.
It was an accident at the end of the day. She didn't get up that morning and go, right, what time's Vanessa going to be at the traffic light? You know, it was an accident. And if we actually started to look at statistics, we probably wouldn't even go to the toilet, because people die in the toilet, you know, it's dangerous. But we still go to the toilet every day. You know, you can't bubble wrap yourself through life. So I got this little Suzuki Bandit 600 and started to do my commute. And yeah, motorbikes breed. You get one and then you're like, oh, N+1, want another one. And so suddenly they're changing. The step to off-road was probably the biggest mental change. And but getting on the bike in the first place, I would say the first time, 5th time, 50th time, 200th time, and even still randomly now 8 years on, I have huge moments of fear and what am I doing? Mental like panics, flashbacks to the accidents scene, and I know that that's totally normal and it's natural. I had a pretty huge trauma, but I'm not going to let what happened in my past completely shape my future, although I mean it's done a pretty good job.
And like when did you think like during that process that you wanted to kind of tell your story, and you know you wanted to like, well, I guess kind of inspire people, kind of get it out there and show that, you know, you kind of can recover from this? And yeah,
it's been a very gradual journey. It's not like I started my Instagram account to share my story and try and inspire other people. I didn't, and I'm not even going to try and pretend that that was the case. I was bedbound after a hip surgery. I was in a really bad place, mentally, physically, not doing that great. Had some of the darkest days that I didn't realize that you could have, honestly, through that recovery. And I thought, I know, I will. And I started posting pictures of me before the accident, because look how cool I used to be. I could kiteboard and snowboard and do all this cool stuff. And then I ran out of photos. And yeah, I was like, well, what do I post now? Well, maybe I should just be real.
Yeah.
And share what I'm going through. And with that, I kind of hoped that maybe I could find other people that were going through stuff like I was going through as well. And maybe we can help each other and learn from each other, and I can't be alone. And yeah, I quickly realized that everybody in the world is going through battles and challenges. And I didn't quite realize that so many people would get energy out of my story and my battles, but it's definitely helped me with my challenges. And the fact that I know that me sharing what I'm going through or have gone through, am going through, it's still ongoing, really helps other people, gives me more energy. And it's just like this lovely energy.
Yeah, that's cool.
The world can be tough. And I think social media can be really evil sometimes, because most people share the 2% of their life. They've kind of always been on a mission to be like, this is it. The ups, the downs, the bad, the ugly, the cry, the pain, the joy, the wins, etc.
And yeah, I mean, then sort of going and doing that, were you sort of looking at the bikes and sort of as you were progressing and kind of getting a bit more confident, changing bikes, like where did the sort of like when you went traveling, when you started doing races, when did that all begin? Was that just sort of a natural progression, you reckon? And
very gradually. If you'd gone back and said to me 6 years ago that in 6 years' time you'll be doing one of the hardest desert challenges of the world, entering Red Bull Romaniacs, which I did last year, or racing at all, I would have been like, what? No way, I can barely even ride. Like, actually, well, 6 and a bit years ago is when I first decided to go off-road. Like, I wouldn't believe you. I'd probably choke on my drink or something. It's definitely been progressive and gradual. So it started with the Harley Davidson, which was a big company cruiser. And when I didn't see the point of much in life, I'd lost my whole lifestyle, my friendship circles. You know, you realize who your friends are, the ones that will come to your hospital bed, sit and play board games on a Saturday and not go kite surfing. You know, suddenly the world had changed a lot. And once I was back at work, why would I take time off work to do what? I don't want to go on a spa break or a city tour. Like, what's the point of any of it? I just might as well just exist. And my husband was in Afghanistan for one of our wedding anniversaries. So once he came back, I was at, again, one of the higher points of the roller coaster. I decided to organise 2 Harleys for an afternoon as a belated kind of anniversary thing. And they were the best decision we've made. It made me realise a bit of adventure, wind in your hair, but without needing to be physically able. Now, for anyone who doesn't ride, it's normally the non-riders that go, well, how can you ride a motorbike when you've got a dodgy shoulder and hip? And actually, even to this day, it hurts me less being on a motorbike than being in a car. The angle of the hip. Once you're on a bike, my right leg doesn't have to move. And it's in quite an open position, whereas in a car, it's a horrible right angle and it's constantly moving on the pegs. You don't steer a bike like this. Okay, off-road is a different question. On-road, you just sit there and you're totally chilled. So the Harley, over the following years, we probably did about 20,000 miles around Europe. We went to Croatia, maybe 15 countries or more. And it became like our new sense of adventure, a new hobby, new interest that we were doing while I wasn't physically able to do sports. But those sports were always something that I wanted to be getting back to. And so the evolution of the bikes actually started when I was bedbound after a hip surgery. And I woke up one morning and I came up with this ridiculous idea that I wanted a dirt bike. And my husband was like, what? But he's an incredibly supportive husband. And that's one note always worth mentioning, is that surround yourself with people that support you and will back you when you come up with crazy ideas. And so we went out and did some research, got me my first little off-road bike, Yamaha WR250. And it was 5 months till I could even sit on it, but it was sat there as a goal, as a reminder. Every time I didn't have the energy to do my physio or I just hurt too much, that bike was there going, come on, Vanessa, we want to go for a ride. And yeah, the little green lanes near our house, just like around the edge of fields. First of all, it made me realise that I really didn't know how to ride a bike, because off-road is totally different to on the road. But it immediately made me realise that this was going to be a lot of fun. I unfortunately was only able to ride that bike for about 4 or 5 weeks until I realised that actually my body wasn't doing well for having ridden the bike, but that there were complications and I had to have more surgery again. But the little fire inside of motorbikes and mud was lit. Let's just say that.
And then it just gets really addictive, right? So you're thinking, like, once you've done one thing or been in one place, you're like, oh, where can I go next? Or what can I do? And sort of challenge yourself. And how do you deal with the racing, like with your hip and like, sort of
painkillers, unfortunately. Like, I wouldn't be able to do any of it without painkillers. And I think painkillers are your best friend and your worst enemy all at the same time. I know that there's risks and implications of what I do, but I know that my mental health would be far worse if I just decided to sit at home and watch Netflix. Yeah. You know, I've only got the one body, and I'm not going to just sit and mope around because mine hurts a lot. And so, people often ask me, like, well, how did you go from doing that to some maniacs? Or it was an obsession with trying to get better, to improve my skills, to learn. The first time I went down a curb, my heart probably went to as high a level as it does now going over a log. But it's all about pushing your comfort zone and growing. And every time you put yourself in that position of fear, your comfort zone moves a little bit, your skill progresses, and you grow and you get better at it. And it's about constantly trying to put yourself outside your comfort zone.
Yeah. And I think that's it, right? I mean, it's sort of too many people. Yeah, you just get in this one zone and you don't want to, maybe you think it's too difficult or you think you can't do it, whatever it may be. But then, it's not about, it's little by little, isn't it? Like you were saying.
Yeah. And surround yourself with people that are better than you. That's a really, really good way of doing it, because you'll always be like, damn, I'm rubbish at this. I need to get better. Whereas if you're always the best one, you won't grow in the same way, and you won't have people around you to give you tips and And so, yeah, I mean, that for me just came from going to places where the riders are and being friendly and trying to make friends and talking to people, watching stuff online and just trying to improve and grow.
Yeah. And how's the community been, would you say? I mean, sort of going from like when you were new into it and sort of, you reckon everyone, were people pretty open, or were they like?
Yeah, it's definitely male dominated.
Yeah.
I think most of the sports I've always done have tended to be slightly more male dominated, but motorbikes are almost certainly very heavily male dominated. Like, take Romaniacs last year, I think there were 6 women of 500 riders or something like that.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I was the only woman in Tunisia. A lot of the races, it tends to be 1, 2, or 3 kind of ladies. I think that there's different types of attitudes that males tend to have about females on bikes. Like you've got the egos that have to get past you, even if they then fall off in front of you or need to like wheelie past you just to show you how big their penis is, which actually tends to mean their penis is really small. Sorry if that's a bit crude and sorry. Maybe bleep that bit out. But then you've got the guys that are like, oh my God, it's a girl. She's fallen off. Quick, help her, save her. And my husband's just like, what? Leave her. She's fine. She got herself there. She'll get herself out of it. And then you've got the guys that just don't bat an eyelid. They're just like, cool, she's just another biker. They're probably my favorite. They help you if you ask.
Yeah.
They're just out there having fun on a bike, just like I am. The fact that I'm female, male, whatever is irrelevant. And I'd say it's generally been really supportive. I think I get a weird satisfaction out of people judging me by my cover. I've got naturally very long eyelashes. I'm blonde. I'm tiny. And they just look at me and go, well, she obviously can't ride. And it's almost fueled a little bit of an extra drive to learn to ride better so that they can judge me. And I'll be like, oh, whatever, brat. It's fun.
And do you reckon, I mean, like now, like is there more females and more like more women and girls getting into the sport? Like, do you reckon that's kind of is it changing and kind of?
I'd say it is, and I really hope with every single day that I post stuff, it's inspiring more ladies to go, you know what, I can ride a bike too, because we are absolutely as capable as guys. Yes, we probably have some disadvantages, like take me and my husband. He's got massive body strength, size, body to bike weight ratio advantages over me because I am a small female and I'm never going to be as strong. But I try and focus more on the skill to try and compensate for that, working on my balance so that I don't need to be able to reach the ground. Thinking about my line a little bit more because I can't just pick up and manhandle the bike in the same way. So you don't ride it as much as a bull. And I'm not saying guys ride like bulls, so don't bite into what I'm trying to say. I just mean, I don't think as a female I am on a level playing field as a guy. And I'm okay with that. I think that's totally okay. But what I am saying is that females can do it all. And it's awesome seeing more girls getting into riding. And I do think it is. I think there are areas of motorcycle riding where females appear to be more prominent. For example, trials riding, track riding, maybe even motocross. Once you go into the hard enduro and the extreme rally, there's a lot less of us. And I can understand why. I mean, it's disgustingly brutal. I'll be honest. I mean, it is really hard. But girls are possible. It's possible, girls. Get out there.
Get out there and do it.
Right. Get out there and do it. Don't use the whole male-female as an excuse. So we can do it too. And it's fun.
That's it. I mean, and it's sort of like looking at action sports in general, it's kind of, it seems to be there's a bit of a shift and it's not just that whole male kind of dominant world of sport, what it used to be, right? So I think it's really important that, it should be fun for everybody and everyone, like you get out there and give it a crack. And what's next? What will sort of kind of going after Tunisia? Like where, like, have you got any projects that you're working on now?
I have caught a virus and it's not COVID. It's the rally
So,
virus. Everyone in the bivouacs talk about this rally virus, and I'm like, what? Yeah, I get it now. I'm now all I can do my next rally. So I've got to do some more training. I've got to try and work on funding, sponsorship, etc. And I'd really like to try and do the Morocco Desert Challenge next. I have got a
nice.
rally in Croatia and Bosnia in August called the Dinaric Rally, which isn't a brutal rally. It's more of a go and have a really awesome holiday doing some amazing riding, push yourself a little, but properly enjoy the scenery kind of rally. And I'm really looking forward to that. So that's the Dinaric Rally. And then between now and then, I've got quite a few trips all over the place. A bit of the summer filled with different motorbikes, including the US and Iceland, Slovenia.
Oh, cool.
So I've got lots going on, but in here and in here, the little like burn is next
The
rally race.
rally.
So
Nice.
I need to find a money tree and possibly a money forest.
Yeah, because I mean, like doing some of these expeditions, it's pretty expensive, right? So you kind of got to get you got to
Yeah,
get sponsors on board, and
exactly. I mean, my husband and I are both, thankfully, very similar mental states towards money and spending, and we are very tight with our spending on things that don't bring pleasure. So, we don't go out to restaurants very often. We don't buy lavish, materialistic things like fancy watches and cars and stuff like that. We make our money work very hard and we spend it where we get the most pleasure. And things like doing a rally, I've actually persuaded him to do one with me. So
oh, nice.
hopefully we'll do the Morocco Desert Challenge as a couple, which will be pretty amazing. And I don't think you get many couples doing desert rallies either. So it will be a lot of fun to be able to share big moments with him.
That'd be cool. And where, if people want to follow what you're up to, what's the best way? 'Cause, I mean, yeah, would you say YouTube or
I'm I'm
social?
on most of the big platforms. I'd say Instagram is probably the first point of touch I would say go to, and I'm regularly posting on there, including stories. The stories are more the everyday updates. I
Yeah.
do then do longer form content on my YouTube, and I'm very active on Facebook. I also do LinkedIn on a slightly different content thing, but I'd say Instagram and YouTube are probably the best points. I am also on TikTok now. I feel a little bit like a granny on there, but I'm doing my best. So any support would be appreciated. And my inbox is always open if anyone wants to, drop me a message and say hi. I'm always open.
Nice one. And on a final note, I mean, if there was any advice that you could give, sort of looking back over the last few years, for people to get into the sport, or just to kind of give anything new a crack, like what would it be?
Believe in yourself. Literally, the power of believing yourself and going into something believing you can do it is absolutely incredible. Every single person, even the Billy Bolts and the pros of the world, were beginners once. Okay, maybe he was a beginner when he was like 2.5, but that's not the point. Everybody is a beginner once, and it's totally okay to feel useless and not be very good, but stick at it, believe in yourself, don't give up. And if you put the work in, you'll get the results. Anything is possible with that mind.
Yeah, nice, cool. Well, Vanessa, thanks so much for your time. It's been awesome having you on. It's really inspiring what you're doing, and we're going to be following the races and the rallies, and good luck with the next one.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's going to be good to watch.
Thanks
Cool.
so much.
Thanks.